Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Connecting the Dots podcast. If you've been with us the past year, you've heard me say that this podcast is a product of Silent Global, an African science communication collective. And now, if you might have wondered what exactly is science communication, this episode is definitely for you. As we reflect on the year, we decided it's finally time to pull back the curtain on the work of science communication. If you thought that it's what we do on this podcast, you are absolutely right, but it is not the full story. Today, I'm joined by some of the finest talent of the continent, particularly from West Africa. I am joined today by Emmanuel Dabo and Eloïne Barry. Emmanuel is the founder and managing director of the African Science Communication Agency, ASCA, a science communication agency whose mission is to promote scientific evidence with a view to improving the living conditions of people in Africa. Emmanuel has been working in the field of science communication since 2016 and has been a fellow of the Earth Journalism Network and coordinates the publication of the Cote d'Ivoirian Public Health Bulletin. Next to Emmanuel is Eloïne Barry, who is the founder and CEO of the African media agency, AMA, based in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan. And Eloïne is multilingual, speaks multiple languages, including French, German, and English, and has a proven track record in building and managing PR businesses. She is the founder, as I said, of AMA and commands a deep understanding of the African communications landscape with more than 15 years experience in the European and African communication industry. Welcome to both of you. Welcome, Emmanuel, and welcome, Eloïne.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. First, the basics. How do we define science communication? I'm usually asked by people when people say, Juliette, what do you do? And I say, I'm a science communicator, and everyone, puzzled looks. So Eloïne, maybe start us off. It's like, well, how do you define science communication? And beyond talking about science, what is fundamental goal that you are trying to achieve when you do this work?
Okay, that's a great question. And it's often difficult. I know I get the same issues when my children ask me, what do you do? So I think the key is, before talking about science communications, is probably to define what is communications.
Right.
What do we do as communicators, especially in a world where lines are a little bit blurred between what we read, social media, what is communication? So if we come back to that topic, to me, and it's never going to be a perfect answer, but it's telling a story. So it's finding within anything we work on, where is the story, because it is always somewhere, and how do we tell that story in a way that is appealing? So if we come back to science communication, now it's telling a complex story and making it understood by my children, my neighbor, the government, my grandmother, the government, and anybody who really needs to understand, because the science has such a universal impact that, to me, it is finding a way to get these complex stories understood by a global audience.
And what about?
And then,
go ahead.
Yes.
Eloïne.
No, the second part of the question, how do we do this?
What's your goal? What's your goal in doing communication?
Yeah. I think, and it's quite personal, I think after spending, because my AMA is now 12 years. I've started it 12 years ago. Thank you. Days are very long, but years are short. And but it's been much more years working in PR and communications within the continent. And I think for me personally, it was because I'm fairly new to science communications. I think we did lots of different communications prior to starting science communications, and it was that new challenge. You have stories that are easier to tell than others, and you have stories that have more impact than others, and scientific stories definitely have that. So it was a bit of a combination of how do we stretch ourselves, how do we expand our knowledge, and how do we make sure that by doing that, we create much more impact.
And Eloïne, I'll probably come back to you. So I'm really, really intrigued in how you ended up in science communication and what you were doing before that. But I'll come back to you. Emmanuel, very, very quickly, how do you define science communication, and then why do you do it?
Thank you, Juliette. Thank you also, Eloïne, for the answer you shared. For me, science communication is a strategic use of communication techniques to get people informed about science, familiar with, and consider it in the decision-making process. And by science, I mean the industry of knowledge production. And in this industry, we have some actors like a scientist, university, research institution, or program. You have also a modus operandi, ask question, the way to understand an issue, mobilize data collection, analysis method, publish article or report. You have also the product or the finding, how these findings are important for society and how this can improve social life. And you have also the beneficiary, those who have the responsibility to use the finding or give them a societal or economic and political value. And I think all this component align with the storytelling technique Eloïne has just presented. And as you can see, science communication is also really associated with the research process. And we have to know that we have two big components: science communication for scientists, peers, and also science communication for non-scientist audience. And I think it's on this aspect we are more focused on the non-scientist audience. Thank you.
And Emmanuel, have you responded to my question about the why, the goal? What are you trying to achieve by doing science communication?
Yes, thank you. I think when you introduced me, you mentioned a bit, promote science, contribute to improve people's life well-being, because we have many challenge, many issue where science can bring effective solution, effective knowledge to help people to improve their life.
And Ellie, let me come back to you very quickly. What is it that made you move into science communication, and what were you doing before? And is it very different?
I wish I had like that super smart or clever answer to give you. But we're pretty ambitious. So we've been wanting to be, and I think we are there, a truly Pan-African agency that can, first of all, cater for the entire continent. But then when you want to try and get specialized, it is fantastic. And I think I really respect what Emmanuel is doing, because I think you get laser focus and you become the best at what you do. We were more of an agnostic type of agency. So work falls on our lap, and we sort of follow trends. And so we were doing, it was the era, obviously when we started, it was a lot around public health. So that's still related to science, but lots around, awareness and public health. Then we moved a bit more into energy, and then environment, and then tech, fintech. And all of a sudden we had that fantastic opportunity to work with probably one of the leading science organization that came to us with a very specific needs for Francophone and Anglophone Africa, telling the story of a very complex technology. So this is how we sort of got into science communication. And also, as Emmanuel was saying, is we often sit from the lens of communicating to non-scientists, to non-scientific audience, which definitely is, 80% of the job. But what we found interesting was to also work with these scientists and to tell them, you do have an expertise. I know that what you love doing is being in your lab and working on your research, but you have to actually, expand this knowledge and tell your story in a way that is understandable to everybody. So sort of grooming and working on personal branding for some of these scientists, that was also very interesting. And prior to that, I actually forgot to mention that we got involved quite a bit with the Next Einstein Forum. I absolutely love the mission of saying that the next Einstein will come out of the continent, which I think is true, considering we're not stopping having babies. It's like we're going to be the biggest continent. And there are high chances that with the level of innovation and also the challenges that we face, we will see the next Einstein coming from the continent. So starting from, that story, that science story, and putting scientists on the global scene has been something very appealing to us. And also getting them outside of the lab and like media training them, and you need to stand this way and stop your jargon and make it simple, use concrete examples. This is fantastic to see the road of where, when you start working with these scientists and where they might be a year later after listening to you. So yeah, it's been a challenging and exciting journey to move into this space.
No, and thanks, Eloïne. In fact, I was thinking that you were going to talk a bit about FMCG, fast moving consumer goods and industry, and that's where you were working. But it also sounds like by the time you were coming into the field of science communication, it wasn't a big leap. So it's something that was really
Yes, we haven't done a lot of B2C PR, to be honest. We do a bit of consumer PR here in Côte d'Ivoire, but it has never been the bulk of our business. So we've been able to sort of, find where the story is, and also, apply some of these B2C principles to science communication. But essentially it is communications. It's all the same. It's just how do you apply it and make it understood.
Emmanuel, I want to come back to you. You have heard me, our audiences have always heard us talk about podcasting. All three of us dabble in some form of podcasting, and I'm sure we've even been interviewed on those platforms. But if we look at the expansiveness of science communication, what is that more that we do that is not only podcasting that you doing at ASCA, with your different scientific communities?
Thank you, Juliette. Yes, sure. I have to recognize that podcast is a powerful way to communicate science, and also a trending one. We have at ASCA a broadcast studio where we can record a podcast and even video. But as I previously defined, science communication is a strategic use of communication technique to promote science. So by the way, we are at ASCA, we are more open to explore innovative way to promote science. And for instance, just a few, currently we are developing a massive online open courses to promote the outcome of a research project focused on climate change and vector-borne diseases. By the last year, we developed also a cartoon for children awareness on meningitis. And this was really appreciated also by UNICEF and presented as a model. We have also online document and printing one we call Droit de Savoir, Right to Know, where we identify an issue, a specific topic people are talking about in the society, and we collect the view of science on this specific issue using a photo, graphic edition, and we use also video. Currently, we are developing a video with SFA, the Science for Africa Foundation, to document a model of a project implemented in the center of Côte d'Ivoire about wound care management, to show also the impact of this project. So we are open to explore different way, and our goal is to be sure that the audience we are targeting will be more comfortable with this with the channel we are using. Thank you.
And what about you, Eloïne? And thank you so much, Emmanuel. I really like the cartoon aspect of things. I'm a fan of comics, so yeah, I'm excited that you're doing that. Eloïne, at AMA, are you doing any creative stuff?
Yes, so and yeah, I love the cartoon too, Emmanuel. I think it's such a brilliant medium. I think we've seen when we first started, it was very much media focused. Media relations was very heavy. And I think as the different channels started to multiply, we also could get more creative in different approaches and, trying different things. So, and especially when you speak to different audiences who don't always read or write, who don't necessarily have access to Wi-Fi or 4G, you have to really go where they are. So we use some of the public health awareness principles, so translating some of the content into the local language, meeting with them, there's a lot in science that has to do with a bit of fear also. So getting them, we organize some community discussion also, where you sit with the chief of the village and then you have community conversation around a particular topic, which gives a great insight also into, because a lot about communications, we tend to communicate, but you have to listen. If you don't really listen to your audience, it's difficult to communicate effectively. So these have been very useful tools to actually spend time with people and sit down and understand, what is it you fear in this particular technology? What do you understand and why don't you understand? And so then getting this sort of data coming back to us to adjust how we position our messaging. And then there's, radio is super powerful, obviously. We've been using social media, speaking to some specific activists or specific influencers to sort of help us share a content to a more Gen Z audience. And then podcasts, to me, and really I commend you both, Emmanuel and Juliette, we had the idea of having our own studio, and then I'm like, this is a lot.
Yeah.
We're going to let Juliette and Emmanuel do this. Lead the charge. But I think, to me, I'm a fan of podcasts, and I think podcasting in an African context where we know how important radio is just at the verge of radio and social media is such a brilliant use of space, and it's just a great channel. So yes, these are some ideas and some things that we've done that are a little bit creative than just your standard pushing out content.
Yeah. No, and thanks for saying that about the podcast. Nowadays, everybody, my cousins are starting podcasts, my relative. Soon I can't wait until my mother starts her own podcast and hear about, her history and stories from our own, our own parents. But anyway, we're going back to your comment. There's something you said about really engaging the community in scientific topics. And we've seen very recently, there's been a lot of discussion, whether it's on the continent, about new technologies, about AI, things to do with health and vaccine. And I wonder, why is science communication so critical, and what are the consequences done well, and then when it's not done well?
The way people imagine science or illnesses coming from the continent is very narrow-minded. And I think for me, working on science communications is part of the whole African narrative. You might think malaria is an African problem until you find your first case of malaria in Florida, back, and
it's happening. Right.
And it's happening because there is climate change. So it is part of, feeding into that change of narrative, that no, malaria is not just a problem in Africa, it can be a global problem. But guess what? We have scientists in Africa working on tremendous innovations to end this plague. So this is what's critical for me. This is what animates the team, animates me. It's to see the bigger impacts, not just for us African, but for the world as a whole.
Yeah. What about you, Emmanuel? What's your take?
Yeah, thank you, Eloïne. I really appreciate the thing to consider one thing as global, and in the same time consider also how we can bring a local innovation in the global narrative, because most of the time the contexts are different, and what can be effective in Europe cannot be also effective in Africa because of the environment, the context, and this also is one of the challenge of of our job. And for me, I think this question show one of the challenging aspects of science communication, and also what is making it interesting, pleasant. At ASCA, for example, the most important indicator of success is to see smile on people's face. When you are in the field, on the ground, and you see the implementation on some innovation get success, and people are happy, confident, and power, and decide to take the ownership and the leadership in the implementation of this innovation, you say, okay, we did it. You say it humbly, and you are happy. And I think it's what we have to do. It's what we have to achieve. Even scientists and also science communication, but in a collaborative way. Because at the end, we want to see people happy. We want to see people wealthy. And And for me, this we can call impacts. Yes, we have some statistics, some numbers, but at the end, we have to ask the question: are people to know if people are happy, to know if people are confident, if people can continue what scientists have started, even after the end of the project, funded by whatever kind of fund you can imagine. And the breakdown. Firstly, I'm wondering if it's possible to bring an effective solution to an issue on which we don't have any knowledge.
Interesting.
We can notice the problem. With my colleague in my team, I say, oh, please be oriented solution, because everybody here know the problem. So when you notice a problem, come with a solution, even if it's not the best one, but come with a solution. And to have solution, we need also to have knowledge, and a knowledge without any bias. And that's why it's important to consider scientists, to work closely with scientists. And it's also an advocacy we do toward policy maker. When you have a trouble, when you are facing an issue, please get in touch with scientists. We have a capacity in Africa, support them so that they can bring the knowledge that will be helpful to implement effective solution. And if you think that knowledge is expensive, let us try ignorance, and we will see between the both what is most expensive. And secondly, not only in Africa, but I think also in many places around the world, we consider some issue as mystical. Mm, we perceive it as mystical and metaphysical one. And most of the time, when people think consider some issue like this, they can see a sort of curse. We can no longer do anything to change the problem. We have to undergo. And this can also bring frustration, because you are aware that it's possible to solve the situation. We have, for some question, we have good knowledge. We know what we can implement. So our job, our role is to let people inform about what they can do to change the situation, so that they can be happy, they can see blessing, and not only curse. And firstly, the breakdown, I think, most of the time appear when there is a lack of good partnership principle value between community and scientists. And one aspect of our job is to strengthen community and public engagement, so that the scientists and the community can work closely in a collaborative way, in a transdisciplinary approach. Because when there is a lack of value, community cannot consider what scientists bring. And the scientists also come into community just to test the innovation, not only to try to change and something. And this is something we have to consider also in the job. Thank you.
No, and Emmanuel, you touched on a couple of multiple points there. I love the way you looked at the community aspect and the involvement of the community, and even sharing information with them. Eloïne and I could see Eloïne laughing at one of your points on ignorance and the cost of ignorance. It's very important for you to have the knowledge. And then, I like when you talk about the myths and misconception, because where you have a vacuum, and I think people never think about this, where you have a vacuum, vacuums are always to be filled. So whether they're filled with garbage or good content, I think this is where Science Communicators, we come in. Now, I only have 4 minutes on this part one, but I want one quick reaction. I want to understand what guides you. What are the 3 points that make you become efficient communicators? If you can just list them very quickly. You can go ahead, Emmanuel. Gentlemen first.
At ASCA, we have true value that guide our job: integrity, usefulness, and simplicity. Integrity stay on the fact what science has proven, and usefulness because we want to be useful for society. And the last one, simplicity, being simple, using simple language. Eloïne mentioned the fact that we need to avoid jargon, something like that. And as in our behavior, we need to be simple so that we can speak simply to people with simple language. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick response. Very well done. Eloïne?
You stole all my words.
You can repeat them.
Yeah. I'm kidding. No, I think ethics for us is definitely a big one, especially in the environment we operate. I think definitely the use of language, and as communicators, it's something that we get a kick out of, to find messaging and to be creative around the messaging and taking something super complex and making it very simple. And then, yes, I think access to information, that's what really drives us, making sure that everybody has equal access to information.
Thank you so much for your short responses. We have come to an end of our part one, where we are speaking to top science communicators from West Africa. Join us on part two of this particular podcast episode.